Hey, juniors, let's talk enculturation. How about it? Let's get right into it. The process by which people learn the necessary and appropriate skills and norms in the context of their culture. Um, a lot of times I give you guys personal anecdotes, as you know, and you might get tired of that. This is one where just not very, I'm just not able to, because I've not spent any time in other cultures as far as internationally. Different parts of the country can be different. I mean, I grew up in a small town and I live in the city, and those places are not the same. But as far as cross cultural in terms of other countries, I don't have a lot of personal input here. I mean, I've never been out of the country, unless you count Cuba and Norway, but you've heard that joke before. However, I do know that um, even even though we all think what we do is normal or the way that we operate is how everybody should operate or whatever, to an extent anyway, we are born as kind of a blank slate, and so the types of enculturation that are listed below here do happen to us, even though we don't really think about it. But those are vertical, horizontal, and oblique. Vertical being parents to children, um, and that can be. This is obviously a nurture thing. It's not a nature thing. We haven't talked a great deal about nature versus nurture, but nature is what you're born with genetically, and then nurture is the environment that you're brought up in. It's everything that's not genetic, and so your parents pass on norms to you. They shape you and teach you what they believe is right and what is not right, and how to behave and not behave. Um, and that doesn't matter if you're adopted um, or not. I mean, that is a nurture thing. It is not a nature thing. Okay. Horizontal is when peers exchange cultural values and norms. That happens more than you probably think it does. A lot of you think that you're so original and unique, and every one of you is unique to an extent, but the ways that you act and the things that you wear and the language that you use, um, a lot of that is mimicked from seeing other people say certain things or do certain things or wear certain things or eat certain things or just behave in certain ways. Um, it's just that's just how it is. Our good friend Albert Bandura told us all about that. Oblique, social institutions like school, media, religious organizations. I don't know how much of that is. I mean, that would be a place where you'd think I would have some personal input, but I mean, I don't in any way go out of my way to try to influence any of you to be certain ways. That's not my job. Um, and most of and honestly, I mean, most of you don't want to be just like your teachers because we're old and boring. But the thing, and it's not about mimicking your teachers, but it could be, and let's go with religion. A religious institution is going to give you certain beliefs that you can choose to subscribe to or not. Same thing with the media and schools as well. All right, Ekman, you read through this one. This one dealt with facial expressions, which I think is really interesting. At the end of it, again, by the way, lower capital S, lowercase s, that's abbreviation for subjects. This is very cross-cultural. All different angles are being looked at here. Chile, Argentina, Brazil, Japan, and the United States were compared. Identifying emotion was the task. There was a lot of consistency, and it seems to show that facial expressions transcend language barriers. The and you would have read this if you did read through the whole thing. The one of the major takeaways though is that there needs to be some consideration given to whether or not certain cultures exercise the norm of expressing nonverbal communication, such I mean like facial expressions. There are certain cultures that are very stoic. Um, Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I've spent a lot of time in those cultures, but in some places you're supposed to carry yourself like that, and there's not as much nonverbal communication in the form of facial expressions. I believe at the end of the article it said, actually, I can pull this up right now. Um, yeah, here it is. Um, Happiness, anger, disgust, and sadness were pretty clear cut, but fear and surprise, as you see here, did not really distinguish from one another as well. And the reason for that is because, and actually, you know what? Let me back up. Certain facial expressions can be misconstrued all the time. I one time, this is somewhat tangential, but um, when I'm confused about something, I kind of look like this, like I furrow my brow a little bit. And um, my freshman year of high school, my English teacher absolutely went berserk on me. Well, she probably didn't go berserk, but it felt like it because she said something and I was kind of confused by it. So I looked at her kind of like this, and she thought I was glaring at her, and I wasn't. I was just confused. And so, um, some facial expressions can mean multiple, be indicative of multiple emotions. But anyhow, yes. So enculturation, as it applies to Ekman, it seems that language barriers are transcended in dealing with facial expressions. Okay, you've seen Barry, I think twice already. This is terrific. I'm not going to tell you about it, but here's how it applies. Sorry about that. I got a little flustered. My niece came over, was looking for parsley. Oh, I'm in Belleville. I don't know if I've said that. Anyway. Okay, so Barry, you know about Barry. You've seen it twice before. How enculturation is in play with the study done by Barry is that it's the assumption that the hunting and gathering, the individualism versus collectivism, is was learned in that culture. That's all. It you don't have to specify from whom, from who. I don't know if I said that right. Creed Bratton would tell you that the word whom is a made up word. I think he said that in the office once. Anyhow, so you can vaguely, if you're going to talk about Barry with enculturation, and the only time that you would have to, no, you wouldn't necessarily have to. You're free to do all the research that you want on your own. But if you took the two studies that we've seen here, Ekman and Barry, if you were to talk about both of those, that would be like an ERQ, which we haven't looked at. We'll look at next year. Um, but you can kind of vaguely speculate that it's possible that people in each of those cultures, in the study that was done by Barry, could have learned, vertically, horizontally, or from oblique enculturation. You don't have to say factually every one of these people definitely learned in a certain way. No, you can speculate about that, and that's totally fine because all that would be doing is communicating that you know what those three types of enculturation are, and that the people from these cultures that Barry studied could have picked up on those things in any of those three ways. All right, wash your hands.